Buccaneers at Saints. Another divisional game here in week 2. Second in a row for the Saints, and a interesting matchup between two fairly talented teams. Two teams that are 1-0, obviously, as well. So, big storyline for the Buccaneers in this game, right? They trounced the Cowboys, which meant just about nothing, given the matchup that those two had in last week's game. But they did lose Donovan Smith, very likely to injury in this one. So, we're talking about Josh Wells at tackle, which will definitely come up here, as well as Chris Godwin to a hamstring injury. And for the Saints defense, they're coming off a showing against the Falcons, where they certainly improved in the second half of their game and showed why some of their personnel is really smart, but had some issues that we're going to talk about for sure. So, how do they match up in this one? How does this Buccaneers offense look into the Saints defense? Well, first we'll get the run game out of the way. So, can the Bucs run the ball here? Immediately, the loss of Donovan Smith really comes up. Donovan Smith is good. He's been pretty goddamn good for a long time and is a big part of one of the best, has been one of the best offensive lines for a couple years here in the NFL. Josh Wells' replacement is really bad. He's very poor play strength. He gets fucking dominated by guys with strong hands and the ability to use their bodies to play the edge in the run game. And literally, there might not be anyone better in the whole league at that than Cameron Jordan. So I'm immediately really worried about one edge, right, for the Buccaneers here. Now, Tristan Wirfs is really good. And while these other Saints guys, Marcus Davenport especially, are okay, Carl Granderson too, they're nothing special. I do expect Wirfs to win over there, but not with any super level of consistency. And on the interior, the Buccaneers are not what they once were. Luke Goedeke, his first game as a rookie last week. Again, I was going to say he was okay, but I don't know that that's quite true. Their offense didn't really look nearly as good as it probably should have. Now, the Cowboys defense has more talent than I think people realize, but Luke Goedeke did not play very well, and he didn't really generate push, especially in the run game. He wasn't awful, but I'm a little bit worried. Rob Hainsey was okay for sure, but this Saints interior also coming off not a so hot game. David Onyemata, a player I think very highly of, clearly was not playing up to his potential in that game. And while I do think he can win a lot on the interior in this one, I'm a little bit worried about that. And their other guys, more importantly, are definitely downgrades from what they've had the last few years. So I do think there's push at the line of scrimmage with this Buccaneers team. At the second level, DeMario Davis, Pete Werner, they are fairly limited players in certain ways. Mario Davis more because of his age than his actual ability. But I do expect them to play really well into this Buccaneers straight-up simple downhill scheme. And you have Marcus May and Tyrann Mathieu back there, both really high-end. So I don't think the Buccaneers are going to be able to run the ball that great. It's okay, but nothing special. And as far as throwing the ball, it's kind of hit or miss. The Buccaneers did not look very good as a schematic offense without Bruce Arians in week 1. They were running similar things to what they've been doing. The same offense is clearly still in place, but it was not with the same degree of creativity and timely play calling that Arians was so good at. And that's something that worries me. Also, the loss of Chris Godwin means, you're running out Mike Evans, Julio Jones on the outside. Both of those players at this point in their career are really good at certain things, for sure still, but are a bit limited as far as guys who can win right off the line of scrimmage very consistently or win in ways that offenses depend on, like in the intermediate levels of the field, on just simple in-breaking routes, that type of stuff. Mike Evans, he's fine at it for sure, but they're not the same degree of player that like a Chris Godwin or what they've had in the past, Antonio Brown, was. And this Saints corner room can actually handle them pretty well. Marshawn Lattimore has played Mike Evans incredibly well throughout his whole career, the reason being that Mike Evans cannot separate from him. He's just not athletic enough. And Bradley Roby, he was okay in week 1. And he's been a decent corner in the NFL for a long time, so I think he can actually keep up with the other outside, beat Julio Jones at this point too. The slot worries me for sure. P.J. Williams still absolutely horrible, but the Buccaneers didn't attack the slot so great, and they haven't for a while outside of Chris Godwin. And while Russell Gage, I think, is good, he's a little bit limited by injury right now, and I'm not convinced he's going to be separating all that much. I will say, though, P.J. Williams is still bad enough that does concern me a ton, no matter what. The Saints do have good safety play. Marcus Bay is an absolute big time playmaker. Showed that already this season. Tyrann Mathieu, I do worry about for sure. And actually, those two as a tandem, while they're really, really good from the intermediate game and driving up field, as downfield, like center field, triple deep safety, that type of thing, both of them kind of have flaws there in their range or their way of thinking. And with Tom Brady and his propensity to just put the ball in the air deep downfield and to good targets like Mike Evans, Julio Jones, that's what ends up really scaring me. I think that's the big hole here that ends up making the difference a lot for this offense. And while, like I said, there is some pass rush, especially from Cam Jordan against Josh Wells, that's really, really bad. The Buccaneers can mitigate that some. Tom Brady is good in the pocket, and I think there's enough wins that the Buccaneers will still be able to move the ball through the air. So I have them at 17-24 points. I do like the Saints defense. I think they are pretty limiting in this game. And they will play this Buccaneers offense a lot better than a lot of defenses do, but it's still nothing incredibly impressive, and there are enough holes here, again, P.J. Williams, that Brady will find purchase throughout the game. So, can the Saints keep up? Well, last week didn't look all that great against a suspect Falcons defense, who actually pretty good, or has a chance to be pretty decent this year. But the truth is, listen, I can say all these storylines, for this team, but they're still just held down because Jameis Winston is their quarterback. Absolutely horrible player. He consistently hurts his own team. And nothing changed in week 1 about that. Now, the return of Michael Thomas does help a lot. Absolutely. We saw that in week 1, catching a couple touchdowns. The dude's still an absolute dominant force. 0 to 15 yards. He kills people consistently. And for this Buccaneers defense, they held a Cowboys offense to a really, really low number. However, that Cowboys offense is real bad and ended up missing Dak for a little bit at the end of the game. But yeah, this team is still super talented, for sure. This Buccaneers defense was one of the best in the league a couple years ago when they won the Super Bowl, and it is still right there as far as the actual personnel they put on the field. So, can the Saints run the ball here? Well, I don't think it's impossible because you do have pretty high-end guys in Ryan Ramczyk, Eric McCoy, and Andrew Speed even can do a little bit there. But it's so hard into this Buccaneers front seven. They were on like 5 guys deep on their and as far as their 3 down linemen that are all really, really like various levels of elite almost with Vita Vea, Akeem Hicks, and William Golston. Really good edge defenders. Shaquille Barrett has learned to do that, especially as he's gone on in his career. Joe Tryon and Carl Nassib both have shown a lot as far as edge defenders in the run game. And then these 2 linebackers, especially Levante David, cleaning up stuff. It's just, it's the same story that it's been for them. It's just so difficult to move the ball on the ground against the Buccaneers, and the Saints kind of depend on that, and they're just not going to have it here. Outside of Ryan Ramczyk, like I said, I just don't see any way that they find enough ground to really make use of the running game. So then it's on Jameis to throw, and it just doesn't work. He's shown very consistently that against competent defenses in the NFL, without huge advantages at the receiver positions, he sucks. And that's still the case, right? You do have Michael Thomas and Jarvis Landry, who I do like a lot. Deontay Hardy, formerly Deontay Harris, is a player I think is a very good receiver. Chris Olave, in his first game, wasn't particularly impressive, but I'm not going to make a decision one or the other. I think he was fine. But these Buccaneers corners match up really well with what the Saints put out there. Carlton Davis and Jamel Dean, both bigger corners, play up to bigger receivers, and that really affects Michael Thomas. While he can drive a little bit, as far as the guy who separates, like I said, he is not the type, he's not Devontae Adams in that aspect. He's just not quick enough, and he is actually limited by these types of guys. Marcus Callaway, too, you can almost throw him out. I don't see any way he's useful in this one particularly. Jarvis Landry, from the slot, he is a different beast for sure. He does have the intelligence and the athleticism to win in those similar areas of the field, and with Sean Murphy-Bunting coming off an injury, not really seeming to be a huge part of the Buccaneers' defensive plans for this year, which is curious to say the least. I'm a little bit worried about that. For sure, but Murphy Bunting has shown to be a good player in the past, so I'm not going to freak out. I think he'll be just fine. I should mention I didn't put on this graphic that they'll all probably have Logan Ryan in a lot too, who I do like a lot. They were using him as a deep safety instead of up in the slot, which I disagree with. They were putting Winfield in the slot a lot, which is a bad matchup with Jarvis Landry. They should not do that. I think they will, which does give the Saints ways to win, but that is a concern of mine. Then you do have Alvin Kamara in the run game, but it's like Levante David, one of the best coverage linebackers there. That is a place where Ryan, Antoine Winfield, and even Mike Edwards can help. And I just don't see any consistent winning at any level or any point on the field for the Saints passing attack. And with how good the Buccaneers front seven is, there's real pass rush here too. I like James Hurst a lot. I love Ryan Ramczyk. But especially Hurst isn't like some super elite guy. Shaquille Barrett can definitely beat him at times. And Cesar Ruiz is just kind of bad on the interior. Andrews Pete has shown to be bad against really quick interior linemen or guys with strong hands, which Akeem Hicks, Vita Vea, that exact type. And so you are talking about pressure overall or enough to affect Jameis Winston. So while I will say just because of Jameis Winston's volatility and the talent of Alvin Kamara and Mike Thomas, they can score a little bit, but it's really hard to see them with any consistently getting over 20. And if anything, the danger in this game, right, is the Saints turnovers, not so much the Buccaneers mostly, which means that this number can get lower and that Buccaneers number can get even higher. So I do see Buccaneers win for sure in this one. Now, I don't love betting on it just because I'm actually not a fan of this Buccaneers offense, particularly this year. I think they did not look good at all against the Cowboys, and their play calling actually really worries me. The further they go without Bruce Arians and without Chris Godwin and without real winners from the slot. Russell Gage is all right, but I do like the Buccaneers, like I said, to win this pretty comfortably, but it is a road divisional game against a reasonably talented defense, and Jameis Winston, for all his faults, if he throws 5 deep passes and all 5 of them draw pass interference penalties, well, then the game looks a lot different. But overall, yeah, I like Tampa. I like the under as well. I think it's a struggle for both these teams to consistently win. I didn't get to a Buccaneers video last week or a betting prediction, so no record on them yet. And then with the Saints, I did think that Falcons game was going to be really close. I thought the Falcons were actually going to end up winning. Obviously, didn't quite happen on a last-second field goal, but feel good about them so far and where I'm at with them. So, yeah, Buccaneers to win in this one.